I'm excited to announce that our next speaker is Cami J. Goldhammer, who is a clinical social worker and lactation consultant, and who also is the founder and chair of the Native American Breastfeeding Coalition of Washington. She is also the founder and president-elect of the National Association of Professional and Peer Lactation Supporters of Color. Cami, are you ready?
I'm ready. All right. Okay. Hihini washte mitakiapi ampetu de chante washte anape chiuzapiye. Cami Goldhammer makiapiye. Damakota. Sisituan wapetuan hamacha. Atewaye Clark Olson Echiapi Ka'a Inawaye Cindy Hopper Echiapiye. Kunchi Marlene Peterson Echiapiye and Unchi Marta Miller Echiapiye. Seattle Edwati. I said good morning to everyone. I realized I'm on the West Coast, so it might be afternoon for many of you. My name is Cami Goldhammer. I am Dakota, and I come to you with an open heart and hands today. My tribe is Sisseton Wahpeton, and I'm the daughter of Clark and Cindy and the granddaughter of Marlene and Marta, and I live in the occupied territory of the Duwamish people, also known as Seattle, and I'm grateful to be here with you today. I'm going to be talking about hopefully two programs that I've developed and run throughout. One is local here in Seattle and one is international technically. We'll see what I get through in such a short amount of time, so we can jump to the next slide. So the first program that I'd like to speak to you all about is Hummingbird Indigenous Doulas. Both of the programs that we'll be speaking about today are community design programs. They're truly created in the community, by the community, and is served by the community that we serve, like our my colleagues before me that spoke. So I love to see that theme, and I hope everyone recognizes how important that is for actually making a difference. Hummingbird Indigenous Doulas started out, I should say grew from a program called Daybreak Star Doulas, which I started in February of 2019. At that time, we were King County, which is Seattle's county and the surrounding suburbs, but King County funded program through Best Starts for Kids. Just recently, our team has decided to step away from our original organization that we were with, or that we were housed at, and are going rogue, is we're calling it, and creating a standalone organization called Hummingbird Indigenous Family Services, and the doula program will be one of two programs in the new organization. Hummingbird Indigenous Doulas really came out of a need to address the maternal mortality rates of Indigenous people here in King County. I know that you all have spent the last day and a half or 2 days speaking about maternal mortality rates. And so I'm not going to go too far into them, but I do want to just let you know that here in Washington State, Native American, Alaska Native, American Indian, pregnant people have the highest maternal mortality rate in our state by far. We die at almost 11 times the rate of white parents and about 4 times the rate of African American families and parents in our state. And so it's something that we really needed to address, and it needed to be addressed from the community. We feel that Indigenous doulas, that we're the protectors of our people, and it is our role, our traditional role and our birthright to serve pregnant people in any way that they need. We are a full spectrum program, a doula program, which means we serve pregnant people regardless of the outcome of their pregnancy. We provide abortion support. One of my doulas is currently supporting a family, a a parent through an ectopic pregnancy, and a bulk of our families come to us for birth and postpartum support, traditional birth and postpartum support. We also, as full spectrum doulas, though, we have supported families in a multitude of ways. We have one of my doulas, Vanessa, has supported a single mother by choice through her fertility journey, has been her partner for her inseminations, and everything. So we're hoping for a baby sometime soon for that parent. But it's been a really incredible experience to develop this program, hire my doulas, and serve our families. Like I said earlier, we serve the urban Native community, folks that, for us, it's birthing or pregnant people who identify as Native American, Alaska Native, First Nations, or Pacific Islander or Native Hawaiian. For us, the pregnant person has to have that identity. We have no income requirement because we know that income is not protective against dying. It is not protective against us being abused or, having traumatic births, interfacing with racism and discrimination and oppression through the healthcare system. Again, we know money does not protect anyone from that. And so we serve families from a multitude of incomes. We have a really diverse population in that way. And we can go to the next slide. So I cut a lot of things out to make sure I got everything in. So I just want to tell a little bit about what we do in the day-to-day. We are a traditional program. And when I say traditional, I don't mean 1950s traditional. I mean the way our ancestors did it. We see doula support, lactation support as a traditional practice, as a cultural practice that we are working hard to reclaim for our community. And we are serving our community in that way. We participate in ceremony with our families. We offer ceremony for a lot of our families. We make them delicious traditional foods after the birth of their baby, depending on their tribal or cultural identity. So, for example, we're not going to make a Navajo mother salmon chowder after she has her baby. We're going to make her blue corn mush, right? And so we go in and do as much research as possible. If we don't know those practices, we're very connected to the larger Indigenous birth community throughout the US and Canada. And so we have a lot of resources to connect with. A lot of our families come to us for different reasons. Sometimes they just want a Native doula, right? They just want someone that knows them, that looks like them, that has some connection to their culture. And then we have folks that are maybe disconnected from their culture, disconnected from the Indigenous community, which we know happens is the sole purpose of colonialism, and so, or one of the purposes of colonialism. And so some of our families are coming to us because they see having a baby as a time to reclaim those traditional practices. They want to pass something down to their children. And so they come to us to get reconnected in a good way. So we, again, make good meals. We take care of families postpartum. We do postpartum ceremonies. One of the most common ones we do is a cedar bath, which is a time after the birthing person has delivered their baby, and we fill a bath with cedar water. And cedar is for us holds a lot of our stories, and is a deep connection between Earth and humans. And so that's what we do when we go through their birth and we process their birth story. And the idea is that the tears that flow from her go into that cedar water, and we give that back to the cedar. And so that's something that we might do postpartum. We give babies a cedar bath, usually on their 4th day. and sing songs for them. And so it really varies though from community to community and what's appropriate. Since about September 2019, which is when we first started accepting clients, so from September 2019 until December 31st, 2020, so just about 6 months ago now, we served 53 families. We were contracted by our grant to serve 25 families in that time, so we nearly doubled served over double. Since then, we have added, we're serving at about 70 families now total in less than 2 years. So it's been very successful. We have lots of families calling us. There's a lot of really good medicine out there in the community about our program, and we're very trusted, and folks are really excited about having Indigenous doulas. 100% of our families are Native PI or Native Hawaiian. And as far as our births go, about 89% of our babies have been delivered vaginally. This is compared to 73% in our area. 90% of those vaginal deliveries have been unmedicated, compared to just 32% of births in our area being unmedicated. Our prematurity rate is 4%, and for Native families in the King County area, we're typically at 12%. And then something that we never intended, this was not a deliverable of our program or anything like that, but about 30% of our families have chosen to deliver out of hospital, which we think is a result of being empowered and being heard and being told that they have choices, and also being connected to resources. So a lot of families will call us for an intake, which I do, and I'll be talking to a family and I'll ask them where they plan on delivering their baby, and they'll name a hospital, and they'll say, I really wanted a home birth though, but I'm high risk and so I can't. And I'll say, oh, well, you didn't tell me you were high risk before. What makes you high risk? And they'll say, oh, I'm 37, right? Like I'm old, or I'm overweight, or I have gestational diabetes, whatever. And I'll say, oh, that doesn't risk you out of a home birth in our area. Would you like to get connected to some midwives to meet with different midwives? So, empowering our families to make informed choices is just a really exciting thing that we've been able to do. And they're choosing to deliver in other areas. For breastfeeding, 100% of our families have initiated breastfeeding, and that's compared to 7% of Native families choosing to breastfeed at birth. Again, we provide doula support through abortions or pregnancy loss, and we've supported several families through that process as well. You can go to the next slide. The next program that I wanted to talk to you about is the Indigenous Breastfeeding Counselor Program. This is an educational program that I created probably in 2015 to about close to 2018, maybe 2016 to 2018. It took me about 2 years to develop, but this was after my experience of becoming an IBCLC, which is an internationally board certified lactation consultant, where I, as an Indigenous IBCLC, went through 2 years of training, lots of education, I did an 18-month internship, and throughout all of that process, I learned how to serve white women really, really well. Every family that I, served at my internship, every story that was told in all of my trainings, every person that taught me, both of my mentors were all white women, and highlighted white families. And that was a huge issue for me as an Indigenous person and someone who's really only has a desire to serve my community. So I had no intention of really serving folks outside of the Native community, let alone the white community. And so I decided to create something different, and that was the Indigenous Breastfeeding Counselor training. So this is a 5-day 45-hour course where we train Native people as breastfeeding peer counselors. So it's a foundational breastfeeding educational course. It's pretty clinically intensive, but it also is completely Indigenous in every way possible. We really see breastfeeding or lactation as a traditional and cultural practice. We believe that it is the community that is to be the stewards of this education and support. So we can jump to the next slide. It is truly designed for us and by us. I, along with several other Native lactation consultants and elders, designed the course. The educators are myself and my breast friend, Kimberly Morsalis, who's a Navajo lactation consultant based out of Arizona, and every person that takes our course has to identify as Indigenous. So we have all Native learners. You can jump to the next slide. We can go all the way to the end because we're about out of time. Sorry, there's several slides in here, but I'm happy to share more information about this, but we, in our 2.5 years or 3 years of serving, teaching this course, we've trained over 220 Indigenous breastfeeding counselors in 10 different courses, and have 16 scheduled for the next year. And so it's going to be a really busy year. But I thank you all for my time. I have 2 different emails up here if you have any questions, but thank you so much.